For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the morning of October 12, 2010, 19-year-old Riku Tan left his dorm room in New York, NY, after texting his roommate he was headed to the Ramble to sketch. He never arrived back for his curfew. Despite an extensive investigation that swept Central Park, involved multiple agencies, and generated widespread public appeals, Riku Tan vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the faint echo of his last message. For 8 agonizing years, his family lived with agonizing uncertainty, their lives consumed by a desperate, unanswered question: what happened to their son? Then, in 2018, a discovery was made deep within the park. A damp, waterlogged sketchbook, its pages fused by algae and wedged beneath a stone ledge near the Ramble Arch. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Riku Tan. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Riku Tan arrived in New York City in the fall of 2010, a 19-year-old illustration major with an earnest passion for capturing the vibrant chaos of urban life on paper. His move from a quiet suburban home to the bustling dormitories of a Manhattan art school was a deliberate step towards a future defined by creativity. He often found solace and inspiration within the sprawling expanse of Central Park, a natural counterpoint to the city's concrete canyons. His roommate, Cassie Odell, often observed Riku's meticulous preparation before one of his sketching excursions. The careful packing of his preferred graphite pencils, a fresh sketchbook, and a thermos of tea. These trips were a regular part of his artistic discipline, a quiet ritual in a loud city. On the afternoon of October 23, 2010, Riku followed this familiar pattern. He sent a brief text message to Cassie, a routine update before he disconnected from the digital world to immerse himself in observation. Headed to the Ramble to sketch, it read, referring to the densely wooded section of Central Park, a labyrinthine landscape of winding paths and hidden vistas. His intended destination was specifically the area around the Ramble Arch, close to the picturesque Bow Bridge, a spot he had visited many times before for its unique blend of natural beauty and architectural interest. It was the last communication anyone would ever receive from Riku Tan. As evening descended, a subtle unease began to settle over the dorm room. Riku had a strict curfew, a rule he rarely, if ever, broke. Cassie's initial attempts to reach him by phone went unanswered, the calls routing directly to voicemail. The silence grew heavier with each passing hour. What began as mild concern soon escalated into genuine alarm as the clock moved past midnight, confirming Riku's unprecedented absence. The dawning realization was stark. Riku Tan was not merely late, he was missing. The following morning brought a frantic search, a desperate scramble to retrace his steps, to find any trace of the young artist. Yet despite immediate efforts by campus security and later local authorities, Riku Tan was never seen again after heading into the Ramble. His disappearance was absolute, abrupt, and entirely unexplained. It left behind only questions, a void where a promising life once thrived, vanished without a single witness or a tangible clue, swallowed by the very park he sought to capture. The alarm triggered by Riku Tan's disappearance quickly escalated into a full-scale missing person investigation. Within hours of the dorm staff reporting him absent, New York City authorities launched an extensive search. Their immediate focus was Central Park, specifically the winding paths and dense foliage of the Ramble, the precise location Riku had indicated in his last text message. Teams fanned out across the 26 acres, meticulously combing through every thicket, every hidden alcove, and the banks surrounding the tranquil waters near Bow Bridge. Among the first responders was Park Officer Mateo Rios, whose intimate knowledge of the park's intricate terrain proved invaluable. He directed search parties, scrutinizing areas often overlooked by casual visitors, driven by the urgency of a young life suddenly extinguished from view. Despite the comprehensive nature of the initial search, the efforts yielded frustratingly little. There was no body, no sign of a struggle, no discarded belongings that might offer a clue to Riku's fate. Witnesses were interviewed, but no one recalled seeing the 19-year-old artist after he entered the park that afternoon. The vastness of Central Park, usually a source of solace, now presented itself as an impenetrable maze, capable of swallowing a person without leaving a trace. The absence of any immediate evidence, whether of an accident, an intentional disappearance, or foul play, left investigators with a chilling void. The frustration mounted with each passing day as the search parties returned empty-handed, the hope of a swift resolution diminishing with every failed sweep. For those close to Riku, the lack of information was agonizing. Cassie Odell, his roommate, found herself trapped in a waking nightmare, her initial concern giving way to a profound sense of despair. Every unanswered phone call, every inconclusive news report deepened the chasm of uncertainty. Riku's family, miles away, endured an unbearable weight, their pleas for answers echoing against a wall of silence. As days stretched into weeks, the initial flurry of activity began to wane. The resources of a major metropolitan police force slowly diverted to other, more tangible cases. The active search for Riku Tan gradually wound down. Despite Officer Rios's persistent efforts and the dedication of countless others, the investigation began to stagnate. Without new leads or physical evidence, the case entered a cold phase. Riku Tan was officially classified as a missing person, his disappearance a baffling mystery that defied explanation. The Ramble, once a source of artistic inspiration, became a symbol of an unanswered question, holding its secrets silently beneath the canopy of trees. The initial flurry of investigation into Riku Tan's disappearance eventually gave way to a chilling stillness. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months, and then, inexorably, into years. The vibrant autumn leaves of Central Park that Riku had intended to sketch fell, decayed, and were replaced by the stark branches of winter, only to bud anew with the promise of spring, season after season. Each cycle of nature passed without a single credible sighting or new lead in the case of the missing 19-year-old artist. Riku's file, once a thick binder of active reports, gradually migrated from the top of an investigator's desk to the archives, a testament to the stubborn silence that had fallen over his fate. The case went cold, settling into the vast repository of unsolved mysteries that haunt New York City. Despite the official stagnation, Riku Tan's disappearance continued to cast a long shadow. For the investigators who had worked the initial search, it remained an open wound, a nagging professional failure. The unanswered questions persisted. Had Riku met with an accident in the labyrinthine ramble? Was he the victim of a random act of violence? Or had he, for reasons unknown, simply vanished? The absence of a body made any definitive conclusion impossible, leaving the case suspended in an agonizing limbo. The city, with its relentless pace, moved on. But the memory of the illustration major who disappeared in its most iconic park lingered for those who had been touched by the tragedy. For Cassie Odell, Riku's roommate, the passage of time brought no solace, only the dull ache of perpetual uncertainty. Her life continued, but the void left by Riku's absence was a constant, stark reminder of his unfulfilled potential. She carried the memory of his last text, a mundane detail now imbued with profound significance. Park officer Mateo Rios, whose boots had scoured every inch of the ramble in those frantic early days, found himself occasionally pulling Riku's file from storage, rereading the sparse, inconclusive reports, driven by a quiet sense of duty and a deep-seated frustration. The case had become personal, a puzzle he could not abandon. 8 years passed since that October afternoon in 2010. 8 years of silence. 8 years without a single new piece of evidence, without a witness coming forward, without any whisper of Rikutan's whereabouts. Hope, once a flickering flame, had long since diminished to embers, threatening to extinguish entirely. The prevailing sentiment among those who remembered the case was that the mystery of Rikutan's disappearance in Central Park was destined to remain unsolved, another tragic statistic swallowed by the vast indifference of time. 8 years had passed since Rikutan vanished, the silence surrounding his disappearance growing heavier with each successive season. The cold case file remained closed, a testament to the lack of evidence and the relentless march of time. Then, in the late spring of 2018, the impenetrable veil of silence was unexpectedly pierced by a chance discovery. Near the Ramble Arch, not far from the elegant curve of Bow Bridge, a park maintenance crew was conducting routine debris removal. Tucked away, almost deliberately concealed beneath a weather-worn stone ledge, was an object that initially resembled little more than a clump of decaying leaves and mud. Upon closer inspection, the object revealed itself to be a book, its covers warped and swollen from years of exposure. It was a sketchbook, its once crisp pages now a sodden, inseparable block, fused together by layers of algae and grime. The dampness had seeped into every fiber, blurring any potential markings, transforming a tool of artistic expression into a waterlogged artifact. Its forgotten state spoke volumes about the time it had spent hidden, a silent witness to countless seasons in the heart of Central Park. Despite its deteriorated condition, a faint, embossed initial on the cover, barely discernible beneath the organic growth, offered a glimmer of recognition. The discovery was immediately reported, and within hours, the item was tentatively identified. The unique design of the sketchbook, coupled with the faint initial, matched descriptions from Rikutan's roommate, Cassie Odell, and his family. The profound realization swept through the small circle of investigators who remembered the case. This was Riku's sketchbook, the very one he had carried that fateful October afternoon in 2010. After 8 years of absolute silence, after countless fruitless searches and the gradual erosion of hope, a tangible piece of Riku's last known moments had resurfaced. It was the first physical evidence in a case long considered insurmountable. The impact of the discovery was immediate and electrifying. Rikutan's cold case, once relegated to the archives, was abruptly reopened with a renewed sense of urgency. For Park Officer Mateo Rios, who had never fully let go of the mystery, the news was a jolt, reigniting a dormant determination. The waterlogged sketchbook represented more than just an artifact. It was a physical link, a direct connection to Riku's last movements, offering the first real opportunity in nearly a decade to unravel the mystery of his disappearance. The long-held belief that Rikutan had been entirely swallowed by the park was now challenged by this unexpected, shocking find. The discovery of Rikutan's sketchbook transformed a dormant cold case into an active investigation overnight. The first critical step involved the meticulous analysis of the artifact itself. The waterlogged sketchbook was transported to a specialized forensic laboratory, where experts faced a daunting task. Its pages, once crisp, had fused into a solid, fragile block, permeated by moisture and bound by 8 years of algae growth. Forensic technicians, working with extreme precision, employed humidifiers to slowly reintroduce moisture, attempting to gently separate the delicate paper without destroying any latent evidence. Each page was a potential repository of clues, and the process was painstaking, demanding patience and a steady hand as they carefully pried apart the sodden layers, inch by agonizing inch, under controlled conditions. The initial observations from the sketchbook were challenging. The dampness had blurred many of Riku's graphite sketches, rendering them indistinct. Investigators hoped for clear depictions of his final day, perhaps a landscape, a portrait, or even a fleeting sketch of an individual or object that might have caught his attention. However, the compromised material made extracting clear information incredibly difficult. What appeared to be a detailed drawing might, under magnification, reveal itself as an indecipherable smudge. Yet every faint line, every partial image, was catalogued and scrutinized, a testament to our hope that a hidden message or an unintentional clue lay concealed within the damaged paper. Concurrently, the physical investigation in Central Park was reignited with a renewed sense of purpose. Park officer Mateo Rios, whose knowledge of the Ramble was unparalleled, returned to the discovery site near the Ramble Arch and Bow Bridge. His eyes, now informed by the tangible presence of Riku's sketchbook, scanned the environment with a fresh perspective, searching for anything that might have been overlooked during the initial, fruitless searches. Old witness lists were pulled from the archives, and individuals who had been interviewed 8 years prior were recontacted, their memories prompted by the startling new development. The sketchbook provided a physical anchor, allowing investigators to frame their questions with a specificity previously impossible. The collective effort was a race against time and decay. The sketchbook, despite its deteriorated state, represented the last known link to Riku Tan. Every smudge, every faint impression, held the potential to unlock the past, to reveal the circumstances of his disappearance. Investigators understood that within those fragile, algae-fused pages lay the secrets of an 8-year-old mystery, and they were determined to decipher its silent language. The smallest detail, a single clear mark, could unravel the entire enigma. The meticulous examination of Riku Tan's sketchbook, a process akin to archaeological excavation, continued for weeks. Forensics technicians, working under high magnification, painstakingly separated the algae-fused pages, treating each one as a precious relic. Many contained only blurred impressions of landscapes and figures, but on one particular page, deep within the waterlogged layers, a subtle detail emerged. It was not a fully formed drawing, but rather a series of faint graphite smears, almost imperceptible against the darkened paper. These marks, initially dismissed as random smudges, were carefully documented and further analyzed. Their deliberate placement suggested they were not accidental, but rather a partial transfer from another surface, an impression left behind. Through advanced photographic enhancement and digital reconstruction, the fragmented graphite smears began to coalesce into a recognizable form. What appeared was a distinct stylized symbol, a unique lamppost tag. This was not a common street scrawl. It bore the hallmarks of a specific graffiti crew, one known for its intricate designs and specific placement. To identify such a niche mark, investigators turned to Nura Haddad, a renowned graffiti archivist and historian whose expertise lay in cataloging and dating urban tags. Haddad immediately recognized the symbol as belonging to a short-lived crew active in Central Park during the late 2000s and early 2010s. Her extensive database allowed her to pinpoint the crew's operational timeline with remarkable precision. This timeline, derived from the ephemeral world of street art, proved to be a critical intersection. Haddad's records indicated the crew had been particularly active in the vicinity of the Ramble in the weeks leading up to Riku's disappearance in October 2010. Crucially, this period overlapped with two other seemingly disparate pieces of information that had been dormant in the original cold case file. The first was a municipal record detailing a specific service gate repair on the eastern edge of the Ramble, requiring temporary access and causing a brief disruption to usual park operations. The second was the documented existence of a known blind corridor, an unmonitored stretch of path often used as a shortcut by individuals seeking to avoid surveillance or attention, located just blocks from the service gate. The pieces, once scattered and meaningless, now began to connect with chilling clarity. The lamppost tag, transferred to Riku's sketchbook, placed him in direct proximity to the short-lived crew's activities. The crew's specific timeline coincided with both Riku's last known movements and the temporary conditions created by the service gate repair. This repair, in turn, opened a previously overlooked avenue of access to the blind corridor. An unexpected confluence of events and details, spanning 8 years, suddenly provided a wholly new direction for the investigation, suggesting Riku's disappearance might be linked not to a random act, but to a specific, previously unconsidered sequence of events involving individuals active in that precise location at that precise time. The painstaking analysis of Riku Tan's sketchbook, combined with Nura Hadid's specialized knowledge, finally allowed investigators to construct a plausible new narrative for the young artist's disappearance. The convergence of the specific lamppost tag, the active timeline of the short-lived graffiti crew, and the municipal records of the serve. Ice gate repair near the blind corridor painted a clearer picture of that October afternoon in 2010. It suggested Riku, absorbed in his art, had likely been sketching in the vicinity of the Ramble Arch, as intended. The graphite smear on his sketchbook indicated a proximity to the crew's work, or perhaps even an attempt to capture their tag. The temporary disruption caused by the service gate repair had created an unusual window of access and activity in an area that was typically less frequented, potentially drawing Riku into an unforeseen encounter within the unmonitored stretch of the blind corridor. This new framework shifted the focus from a random act to a specific set of circumstances, suggesting Riku's disappearance was not merely a vanishing, but an event intrinsically linked to these intersecting elements. Armed with this critical data, the police dramatically narrowed their investigation. The anonymity that had shrouded Riku's case for years began to dissipate. The short-lived graffiti crew, once a vague entity, now had names and potential locations. Investigators began the complex process of identifying and interviewing former members of the crew, as well as any individuals associated with the service gate repair in that precise time frame. The blind corridor, previously just a path, became a site of renewed scrutiny, its significance as a potential point of contact or an area where Riku was last seen now undeniable. The search parameters were no longer boundless but focused, driven by tangible leads. For Cassie Odell, Riku's roommate, the news brought a profound, if bittersweet, sense of relief. After 8 years of agonizing uncertainty, the reopening of the case and the emergence of concrete leads offered the first real hope for answers. Park Officer Mateo Rios, whose quiet persistence had never allowed Riku's file to be truly forgotten, felt a deep sense of validation. The small, overlooked detail in the sketchbook, amplified by Nura Hadid's unique expertise, had unlocked a mystery that had defied conventional investigation. Hadid's contribution was recognized as the crucial turning point, her specialized knowledge providing the Rosetta Stone for a forgotten language of the street. Riku Tan, the 19-year-old illustration major, had vanished into Central Park, leaving behind only questions. His art, once a personal passion, became the silent messenger, a hidden clue that defied the passage of time. While the full story of his final moments continued to unfold, the discovery of his sketchbook, secreted away for 8 years, underscored the tenacity of those who pursue justice and the extraordinary power of unexpected evidence. His case became a poignant reminder that even the deepest mysteries, seemingly swallowed by time, can eventually yield their secrets to meticulous investigation and an unwavering commitment to truth.